Welcome to this World of Africa broadcast from Durban, South Africa. I'm Alyson Lagrange. Now this week, the continent's entertainment industry is evolving and budding. We explore some of the changes being implemented and additions being made on sets and film production to draw a global audience. The show starts right now. We begin with a spate of violence that extremist rebels have unleashed on locals in simultaneous attacks across 3 countries, including Burkina Faso, Nigeria, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. The toll from these attacks is close to 100, and authorities in these 3 nations are struggling to control the dangerous and hostile forces. Here's a report.
Our trail begins in Burkina Faso. Militants attacked Kourakou and Tondobi villages in Senu province. At least 44 people were killed by Islamic extremists in multiple attacks in northern Burkina Faso. The West African nation has been overrun by extremist violence linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group that's killed thousands and displaced 2 million people in over 6 years. Fighting has frustrated and divided a once peaceful population, leading to 2 military coups last year, with each junta leader vowing to stem the attacks. But the violence is intensifying and spreading as militants blockade villages, preventing hundreds of thousands of people from moving freely. In February, the Islamic State group claimed responsibility for killing more than 70 soldiers, wounding dozens, and taking 5 hostage in an ambush on a military convoy in the north. A few weeks before that, terrorists killed at least 32 people, including soldiers and civilians, in multiple attacks across the country. The violence has created the worst humanitarian crisis in the country's history, forcing 1 in 5 citizens, some 4.7 million people, to be in need of humanitarian assistance, according to the United Nations. The war spilled over to neighboring Nigeria. At least 30 people were killed in an attack on an internally displaced persons camp in north-central Nigeria, the second major attack in the area this week. Gunmen attacked civilians in a village in Benue State. While it's unclear who was responsible for the attack, authorities said suspicion fell on local herdsmen who have clashed in the past with farmers over land disputes in north-central Nigeria.
We were able to pacify them, and we took a decision that we will take this matter up with the federal government, and we are also trying to schedule a meeting, where some of the leaders of Mieti Allah will also have the opportunity to meet with some of the security chiefs in Abuja, for the purpose of finding a lasting solution to it.
The violence comes days after gunmen killed at least 50 people in 2 separate attacks on Umugiri village in the state, which is referred to as Nigeria's food basket because of its bountiful harvests. However, it is unclear if the same group was responsible for both attacks. And finally, at least 22 civilians were killed by extremist rebels in eastern Congo, the group's second large-scale deadly attack of the week. Fighters with the Allied Democratic Forces, which has ties to the Islamic State group, attacked people in Beni territory in North Kivu province.
In truth, the situation was atrocious. I left the field and tried to ask a group of people what had happened in the village without knowing that they were the attackers. They asked me to sit on the ground and they held a gun to my head.
Violence has been simmering in eastern Congo for decades, where some 120 armed groups have been fighting over land, resources, power, and some to defend their communities. According to the United Nations, attacks by rebel groups like ADF have increased recently. Since April last year, ADF attacks have killed at least 370 civilians and abducted several hundred more, including a significant number of children.
We have been crisscrossing, marching, bombing on the Allied Democratic Force stronghold, already directed in advance, and today we caught them at 12 o'clock sharp at the time of their prayer. We are sure and certain that the Democratic Republic of Congo will win.
The group, which originally operated in North Kivu, has spread to neighboring Ituri province, where over 144,000 people have been displaced between January and February, according to the United Nations. Efforts by Congo's army and Ugandan forces to push them back have yielded little results. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Our next story is of hurdles being faced while trekking in the deserts. Every day, hundreds of people make the treacherous journey across volatile borders to escape some of the problems they face in their home countries. Case in point, Somalia, where thousands flee the war into neighboring Kenya and Uganda. Now, migrants in the Sahel are finding themselves in the same conundrum like the Somalis. Find out how in this report.
Dadaab refugee camp, the biggest haven for those fleeing the war in Somalia to Kenya. It's the oldest crossing point at the border that is now facing another hurdle. Every day, hundreds of desperate people arrive at Dadaab seeking food and shelter. Most from across the border in Somalia, where violent instability and a record bad drought has made life impossible for many. Ugash Adan Abdullahi, his 2 wives and 9 children walked some 500 kilometers from their Dust Bowl village in southern Somalia to Dadaab. And now they have to endure another problem.
When we are given food, we sell some of it to buy sugar and other necessary things, so we don't have enough food to last us until the next distribution.
Resources are overstretched by the sheer number of arrivals, and newcomers must make do. At a water pump on the edge of Dadaab, Fatuma Ahmad Ali had queued up since the previous day to fill her container. In this arid and inhospitable climate, water distribution is overseen by Doctors Without Borders, a French charity which also runs a health center for recently arrived refugees. Jeremiah Mbiti, deputy head of the MSF medical team, said conditions in the teeming camp were the worst we have ever seen.
It's challenging for the whole context of Dadaab that we are facing now, the new arrivals coming in. Because as you can see here, we are having this small outpost and it's supposed to cater for the population that is here. We're also providing water, which is never enough. We are constructing latrines. We have so far done 101 latrines. We are doing 50 more. It's never enough.
Thousands of miles north, every week, hundreds of migrants turned away from Algeria end up in Asamaka, the first village on the border with Niger. There are now more than 4,500 people trapped between the Sahara and Sahel deserts. From one moment to the next, they can appear on the straight horizon, long lines of silhouettes making their way through the desert, the strongest in front, the weakest behind.
We traveled 15 kilometers from the border to Asamaka. Once here, the Nigerian police welcomed us to take our fingerprints. After that, they directed us to the IOM. But when we arrived at the doors of the IOM rejected us, saying that they do not recognize our presence here, even though the IOM is an international organization that looks after the welfare of all migrants.
Malians, Guineans, Ivorians, Syrians, Bangladeshis. After a 15-kilometer walk in the desert, discover a new purgatory. The transit center managed by the International Organization for Migration, the main intergovernmental organization in this field, is overwhelmed by the influx and only takes in about a third of the deportees. In Asamaka, the water tanks are empty, the rations insufficient, and the shelters too rare. While the temperature sometimes approaches 48 degrees during the day, thousands of people are crammed against walls or under makeshift tarpaulins to find a spot of shade.
You see, the way I'm talking, I'm trembling right now. Understand? I'm going through a trauma situation. I'm feeling pain inside my brain right now, the way I'm talking to you. Because there's no good food. I'm not even healthy. No fish, no meat, no nothing for the people. Understand? People are going through a lot here. The situation here is very hard. It's very tedious.
When Nigeria catch you in their country, then take all the necessary information about you. But at the end, when they want to deport you, they won't give you a single of the document they take from you. And when you come here, because they first come in Asamaka, because people never stay in Asamaka, then come in Ali Street because of the suffering in Asamaka.
The number of migrants rejected at the gates of Niger has not stopped increasing since the beginning of the year. From the Algerian border to Agadez, the regional capital located 350 kilometers away, the transit centers are all clogged. The roads leading further south are under threat from terrorist groups, forcing expensive charter flights to repatriate migrants to their countries of origin. Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
Nollywood is big business in Africa. They are the creators of Nigerian movies whose popularity and fame has spread fast across the continent. Online streaming platform Netflix and UNESCO are now seeking a breakthrough for African cinema. Our correspondent, Louisa Alenai, reports on how the two organizations are giving a platform to new voices.
The rise of streaming platforms is redefining the Nigerian film industry, better known as Nollywood. For years, Nigerians relied on traditional TV networks to enjoy the latest releases. But with the advent of streaming platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime, the way Nigerians consume Nollywood content is changing. These platforms also provide a new avenue for filmmakers to showcase their talent and creativity and to tell stories that may have earlier gone untold.
I think that with the lot of streaming platforms that we have today, producers are now able to have their films directly online without even looking for marketers to do that. Unlike before, where you have to finish producing your film, you get a marketer either to sell to that marketer outrightly or you kind of strike a bargain. Now, people have platforms on their own. You can just go on YouTube and then just create a platform and boom, you're there. You can also approach Netflix and the world is seeing everything about your film, at one go. And it's like a one-stop shop now. And so for me, I think that, the most streaming platform that we have, especially when it has to do with the online platform, it has actually opened the Nollywood industry to the other parts of the world.
According to a report by PricewaterhouseCoopers, with an estimated revenue of $590 million annually, Nollywood produces over 2,500 films every year. A typical film budget ranges from $20,000 to $50,000. The industry provides employment for over 1 million people. Streaming platforms have disrupted the theatrical release model. The COVID-19 pandemic worsened the trend. Many theaters have closed as more and more people are choosing to stay at home and watch content on OTT platforms.
A cinema experience is fun, maybe if I have friends and want to do a hangout, but I think I prefer sitting in my comfort zone watching it, my Netflix here.
Some believe that this new opportunity comes with new challenges.
Titles that are actually considered premium and, the kind of titles that we are all waiting to see, the likes of The Matrix and the likes of The Avengers and all of that, will be made available to streaming platforms in like a couple of weeks after cinema release. So that by itself would, in a way, affect the cinema culture. And like I have said before, is the whole streaming culture going to affect the theater and cinema thing? Yes, it will. It's already affecting it, but maybe not significantly yet. But over time, it will definitely affect that market.
While it is uncertain what the future holds for cinemas, it is clear that streaming platforms will continue to play a very essential role in the way movies are distributed and consumed, as the Nigerian movie industry is undergoing a significant transformation. From Lagos, Nigeria, Louisa Olani, WION, World is One.
We are still talking about film, but with a little twist. An exhibition in Kampala is showcasing young Ugandans training as special effects makeup artists. They are hoping that when people watch their craft, it will bring a big shift in the industry. Here's their story.
Like a painter with a blank canvas, Esther Nakaziba studies her model before embarking on a long shape-shifting process. Using a bandage and her numerous tools, she transforms this model's face into a realistic, one-eyed man who has suffered a burn. Nakaziba is a film makeup artist in Uganda. She says she can create fake wounds, bruises, swollen faces, rotten skin, anything a film producer desires. Nakaziba has organized a makeup artistry fair to bring all the talents under one roof. As many young Ugandans are now entering the industry due to the rising demand from the film and entertainment industry.
We are very few in the country, so we hardly know each other. So with this space, with this exhibition, it is collecting all of us to be in one space so that we can connect, skill those that want to be skilled, train the youth so that we can build a very big team.
Makeup artists are in demand for music videos and movie sets to create different visual scenarios and alter actors' appearances. Meekness Kakunzira, a local content producer and an actress, is hopeful about the future of makeup artists in the country.
The classes are really helping or are going to really help a lot of people. Now, like you see in the acting industry, you don't get jobs all the time. But if you're SFX makeup, it really helps. Like today you might not be on set as an actor, but you might be on set as a makeup artist, as a SFX makeup artist. So it's really helping. And for the guys out there, the youth most especially, because we know we are suffering with unemployment in the country, should really join this.
Uganda has seen several blockbuster films shot in the country, but for a long time the country had no film makeup artists. Producers would outsource the services from other parts of Africa and Hollywood. Thanks to this new pool of talent, this is changing.
More films have been coming out, and thank God now they're looking for more African special effects makeup artists, because before they used to bring guys from the States. If they come to Africa, they just go to South Africa to look for guys there. So now at least they go to Nigeria, they come to Kenya, they come to UG, so at least we've started scattering everywhere.
The young Ugandans hope that foreign film producers shooting in the continent will stop bringing their crews with them and start to hire local people instead. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And finally, a former Ugandan journalist has turned to bamboo farming as a magic bullet in the fight against environmental degradation. Here's our trailblazer this week.
Some 65 kilometers north of the Ugandan capital of Kampala rests a lush green bamboo forest. It's the brainchild of former journalist turned farmer Andrew Kalima. Kalima switched from journalism to bamboo farming in order to contribute to the reversal of environmental damage being seen in the East African country.
A tree like Wabugia ugandensis, it will take maybe 15 to 20 years. A musizi tree takes 20 to 30 years. A mugavu takes 30 to 50. A muvule takes up to 100 years to be ready for harvesting. Now, you cut it down, it will take another 100 years to replace it. Bamboo, you cut it down, it takes one season, it is back. It grows back. So it's a magic bullet of sorts that we need to use in our fight to save our environment.
In 2010, Uganda had 6.93 million hectares of tree cover, extending over 29% of its land area. In 2021, it lost 49,000 hectares of tree cover, equivalent to 23.5 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions. According to the International Monetary Fund, the East African country has lost over 1 million hectares of tree cover, nearly a third of the country's total. With Uganda losing hundreds of hectares of forest cover due to population pressure and illegal logging, both public and individual efforts have become key to restoring degraded land. Kalima says bamboo, which is fast-growing and can adapt to different weather conditions, is key to mitigating the effects of climate change in Uganda.
People are becoming aware of the value bamboo has in conservation work, in conserving our soils, conserving our environment, and they want planting material, but they can't afford the planting material.
To help spread knowledge of bamboo farming around the country, Kalima has opened his farm to learners from different institutions as well. He says students will act as ambassadors for bamboo farming.
I have discovered that using bamboo, it's somehow better. Like in hedging, but with bamboo, where you plant bamboo, that soil can't dry. So it minimizes a lot of water you need to irrigate those plants.
Some of what I've learned is that bamboo, it can be medicinal. Through its charcoal, they burn the stem, which is called the pulp. So you get that charcoal, it's good for digestion, and you can make herbal soap from it.
Bamboo is best known for its strength and durability. Kalima is confident that his trailblazing efforts will pay off someday. Here's a tip from him. He says there's thousands of potential products that can be made from bamboo, even bicycle frames. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And that's our time this week on World of Africa with me, Alyson. Thank you for watching. Find us on our social media platforms. Your feedback is highly appreciated. Until next week, goodbye.